Welcome to the Lyrically Speaking podcast, where we dissect, dig deep, and discover the lyrics to some of the most popular songs ever written. We ask, what are they really telling us? What can we learn? Or unlearn, in some cases. I'm Louise.
And I'm Omar.
And here on the Lyrically Speaking podcast, we share our thoughts on how the broader themes from these songs relate to our real everyday lives. So if you love music, if you enjoy critical thinking and reflecting on life's bigger themes while having a laugh with friends, then this is the place for you. Today we've got another special song for you, and we chose this song because it wasn't actually the biggest selling song of 2022, but it was very popular. It went viral.
Popular. Yeah.
And it was well known, even though I was shocked to find out that it wasn't the biggest selling.
Yeah, didn't do so well in the charts, funnily enough.
Harry Styles stole that spot of, I think he had the biggest selling song of 2022. Yeah. But the song for today is Break My Soul by Beyonce. Mm-hmm. And so we're just going to start off with reading out some of the lyrics.
Yeah.
So she begins with, now I just fell in love. And I just quit my job. So there's a lot happening there.
It's quite a few transitions.
She's
fell in love, quit my job.
But she's unemployed. Okay. So in a way, something good's happened. Something maybe not so good
has happened.
And then she goes on to say, I'm going to find new drive. Damn. They work me so damn hard.
Work
girl.
By
9, then off past 5.
Girl.
And they work my nerves. That's why I cannot sleep at night.
That's quite significant, though. That's significant. That's a lot of pressure. When you're struggling to sleep at night because of your job, that is a lot of pressure.
It's not a good sign, is it?
Not a good sign.
Sleep. And then she says, I'm looking for motivation. I'm looking for a new foundation. And I'm on that new vibration. I'm building my own foundation. Hold up. Oh, baby. I was going to say something else.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, baby.
You won't break my soul. 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 I'm telling everybody. Not sure why, but she is. She's telling everyone. Everybody.
Right.
So
there's a few interesting themes there.
I get the sense that at the end she's really taking charge.
Yeah, she's found her voice,
her life.
And that's why she's telling everybody. She's telling everyone that would care to listen that this job is not going to break her soul. She's sure. And I think I get that. Because when you're on that journey, so, we've been in this working life and this working game. When you're on that journey, it takes a long time to make the decision that you're going to jump. Even if you want to transition to a new role, it can take a long time. And maybe it's for us. Maybe it's for us millennials. Because to be honest, I'm hearing, the Gen Z's like 4 months, they'll be like,
they're out,
I'm not feeling it.
Gen
I don't
Z,
like the vibe. Bye.
When millennials first, were being introduced to the world as millennials, our brand was that we don't work hard and we're lazy.
And we're lazy. And it's funny.
Actually, I think that millennials have been, were more committed, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Gen Z, is as they've said, they're hopping more frequently
100%.
than millennials. And to be honest, all the millennials I know either have 2 jobs or they are working late. They are so incredibly hardworking. I don't know any that are lazy. You can't afford to be.
You can't afford to be. Exactly.
In this world.
Exactly.
Do you think that the whole job hopping, because what we're really talking about is the Great Resignation, right? So that took place in 2022 officially. Obviously the world went into lockdown in 2020. It ended in mid 2021 and Freedom Day was officially on July 2021, and then Beyonce's song came out a year after, so summer of 2022. But they say that the official year of the Great Resignation was 2022. So her song came out right in the middle of people quitting. And apparently 50.5 million people quit their jobs in 2022.
Wow.
And it had far surpassed the prior record set in 2021. So it started to become, I guess, this trend associated with the pandemic, because people had more time to think about what they wanted to do.
And reflect.
And anytime there's a great shift in life, we all reflect.
Exactly.
Even just at a micro level.
100%.
You know, even when we're talking about things like, you know, grief, getting married, having children, all these major life shifts cause us to rethink. And my view is, I think that we underestimated the fact that there was a global shift. There was really global grief. I think just over 3 million people died because of COVID. And that was just in, I think, 2020. So we're not even talking about other years. So when you've got a whole nation grieving, you've got a whole nation that has had a huge shift in their life, the whole nation is, of course, naturally going to start rethinking. Did you see that coming?
You know what? I think I did. And I think, you know, because the bottom line is, in any profession, and I just think in the world of professional work that we're in, there is always an underlying, is malaise the word I'm looking for? People are generally not satisfied. So I think that when you have people who are generally not satisfied, and this is across the board, I think it's especially challenging, you know, for people who are carers and things of that nature. You have people who are generally dissatisfied with the way work is. Now you've been shown that, wait, I can work less, I can be at home, I'm actually more productive, I can do better. So I think that the rumblings, for me, I thought, the minute they say you can work from home, and you're sitting down, or you're going into your office, maybe you're having to go in 2 times, but you know that your pal is doing the same work and she doesn't have to go in at all, you're going to be like, you know what? Bye.
But I've got a question for you. What age group do you think saw the biggest growth rate in resignations? Not the biggest amount of resignations, but the biggest growth rate.
I would say like millennials, like the later millennials. I'd say like the 35s plus, I think, saw the greatest.
It was 40 to 60-year-olds.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. They had the biggest growth rate in resignations.
Wow. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Well, 60 I get, because to be honest, I mean, you're pretty much later in life.
Yes.
You're already due a nice pension. So you might think, if you've, picked up a hobby or picked up something new to do, you might think, actually, I could just leave it there.
And they've got more leverage, I guess, because
100%.
like you were saying, they've got more years of experience that they can fall on, or they can go into consultancy or do some sort of private stuff. So, I thought it was just interesting the pandemic really, when we're talking about the Great Resignation, I think a lot of people assume, it was younger people that were increasing in numbers of resignations, but it wasn't actually. It was 40 to 60-year-olds. And most people actually went into something completely different. Yeah. And I think Beyonce alludes to this, because she talks about having a new foundation and doing something different. Yeah. But I think a lot of this, you know how you talk about there's a general malaise? Yeah. I think a lot of this also not only links to the fact that there was a pandemic and there was a national grieving and a national shift and change socially. I think also people aren't necessarily doing what they're passionate about and what they should be doing.
How many people are really doing what they're passionate about? And I think the reality is most people aren't. And so I think people saw it as an opportunity. You know, people were at home doing their side hustles, and they started to think, you know what? I'm passionate about this. Why don't I actually spend my time doing what I'm passionate about? Especially when you now, put that against the fact that you're losing loved ones. People are having more of a revelation of the brevity of life. You think, you know what, do I want? And actually it starts to make sense to me, 40 to 60. I'm basically going into the latter stages of my life. I spent the first half of my life toiling, pushing, dedicated to something and someone else's company or someone else's thing, and I don't love it and I don't care about it, and it's paid my bills, but I don't love it. And then you just think, well, actually, given everything that's happening and the brevity of life, do I want to spend the last part of my life doing the same thing? I think most people, the reality is no.
Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
There are bills to pay. I know Beyonce has told us to quit our jobs, work is stressing us out, but the reality is that Beyonce is not quitting. She grossed almost $500 million last year on her
telling
Renaissance
us to
tour.
leave our jobs.
She did 56 performances in 39 cities within 5 months.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, she broke records with that tour.
Yeah.
It was the highest grossing tour by a woman ever.
By a woman ever, yeah.
So she is not only is she not quitting, she's working hard, she's continuing in an industry that is really rough on women.
Yeah, and really rough on black women, and also really rough on women of a particular age, which she's now in.
And she's persisting.
Over 40, yeah.
So she's not really doing what she's telling us to do in her song. And I don't think it's just because she's passionate about music.
Oh, 100%,
I think there's a number of factors.
Yes, yeah.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
I know I'm not letting you answer my question, but I think there's a few factors which I'll share, but I want to hear.
Yeah, what I think
do you think it's indulgent to say, like what Beyonce said, work stressing you out, quit your job, go get a new foundation?
I don't think it is indulgent. No, I don't think it's indulgent. I think you can still have a new foundation whilst being responsible. What's indulgent is for someone to tell you, don't worry about your responsibilities, forget that you've got children that need to be fed and you've got bills to pay and, you know, baby care fees, and forget all of that. Just do what you like and, you know, go live in a trailer somewhere. And that's indulgent. That's because we would all love that. We would all love to go and get a nice RV and spend a year doing it up. You know what they show us on YouTube, these people that do up their RV and then travel to Chile and travel to this.
Living on the road.
We'd all love to do that. But the bottom line is, most people who are doing that, why are they on YouTube? Because they got to make money. They're on YouTube because they got to make
bills
money
to pay,
from
honey.
YouTube, because you've got
Cost
bills
of
to pay.
living.
So I think now, with the advent of social media and influencing and all of that, you can actually be savvy and do what you're passionate about whilst still making money. I think it would be indulgent to say, don't bother about the money side of things, just do what you like. That to me is indulgent, because we have to be responsible as grown people. We've got, whether or not you like it or not, if you want to have a roof over your head, there's bills. If you want to, you know, conduct yourself in society, you've got phone bills, and also you've got taxes to pay. So, you know, at the end of the day, we do have to find a way to make a living. But you can also pursue your passions at the same time. And some people manage to do both. They do. And some of us are not. Now, we've been so long in the game doing something that makes us good money that we're used to. We're not always brave enough. And I think that's what the pandemic unearthed. It gave people that boldness to say, let me try something else. I'm still going to make my money. I'm still going to be responsible. But I'm just going to try something else that I just like a bit more. Putting the passion side just slightly above just what makes you money. So I don't think it's indulgent. I think you can combine the two.
I agree. I think do your passion is only part of the story.
Yeah.
I think there's a few things that we need to think about. One of them is, will we make money from it?
Yeah.
You know, are people willing to pay for that passion? You know, if I have a passion for milking cows, but it's in an area where no one drinks cow's milk and they all drink almond milk and they're not willing to pay for that milk, then it's a bit of a waste. But other things that we need to consider as well is, do people want it?
Yeah.
You know, is it needed? Is there a market for it?
Exactly.
And I think Beyonce has been persisting in, she's 42 now or something like that. I think she's been working since she was 12 or something, and I think she's persisted in this field, not just because it's her passion. I think because people are willing to pay.
Exactly.
I think because there's a market, there continues to be people who there's continues to be a demand for what she's selling. And another thing we need to think about is, are we good at it? You know, it's all very well and good having a passion, but if we're not good at it, we don't have and just because we're not good at it doesn't mean that's the end of the road.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean we should stop.
Can improve.
It
we
means
can do it as a hobby.
We're being honest and we're understanding where we sit 100%. So we can improve. I believe in growth mindset and all of that. So it means that we can develop the competency to get to where we want to be. But if I say I want to be a singer, okay, and I'm passionate about singing, and you're like, Lou, no, it's just, you know, you're not good at it. And then also, no one wants to buy my music. No one wants it or needs it, and there's no market. Then there's nothing wrong in pursuing
Exactly.
that as a passion because we love it. But when it comes to thinking about how we're going to live and
100%.
pay the bills and all that kind of thing, it might not be the only factor or the best factor
but
to
you know, the
focus on.
challenge is now, I think this is the thing, is this concept of responsibility. And I think the reason why, you know, a lot of people see this, like a lot of the younger people that are, you know, dipping out of the workforce and stuff, is it is that concept of responsibility. The less responsibility you have, the easier it is for you to duck out and say, all right, well, I don't like this, I'm going to try something else. You can hop and do whatever, but, you know, the less responsibility you have, the less financial responsibility you have, you know, the more kind of options are open to you to try your hand at various things, you know.
And you make a good point, because obviously one of the lyrics in Beyonce's song is something about, you know, they're working my nerves, I'm working 9 to 5, I'm just going to sort of quit. And the truth is that challenge builds character, right?
It
Overcoming
does.
difficult situations at work builds character. And actually, I have a quote from Beyonce that relates to this. She herself said, if everything was perfect, you would never learn and you would never grow. So she is not someone, absolutely not. I don't think anyone would say that she's someone who, when things get tough, she quits. She's not.
No,
we can tell.
not. We can tell
she has built resilience.
She fell down the whole flight of steps. I couldn't believe it. My lady did skip a beat. She jumped up. I said, wow. She didn't. I don't know what they did to her afterwards. I mean, she must have taken some strong painkillers, but because we know how it is. You know, she was in her 30s and she had a baby. She rolled down those steps. I couldn't believe it, but she didn't skip a beat. That's someone that's built resilience, you know what I mean? And they've mastered, you know, what they're doing. So, yeah, we definitely would say that she's someone that quits when the going gets tough.
In a way, if ironically, we can almost learn from her in terms of how to handle and navigate tough times, because she reinvents herself
each time.
She reinvents her. She knows what's coming. She knows the trend that's coming. And rather than feel defeated and say, "Oh, this is too hard. I can't cope with this," she actually just reinvents herself and keeps coming with something new. And likewise, in our careers, we need to maintain ahead of the curve. How are we future-proofing our careers? How are we looking at what's coming down the line and what skills we need to develop in order to prepare ourselves?
And that's also a point. I think that growth mindset and constant development. You know, you can't do something for a certain period and then feel you've arrived. You've always got to be able to pivot. And with the advent of so much, you know, technological advancement now, you really have to, you know, keep pushing and seeing where there's going to be a need, because to be honest, many things in maybe 10 to 20 years, they might even be obsolete. If you think about certain, you know, professions in, you know, the law field, or, you know, even in medicine and things like that, some things may actually be obsolete, and so you have to keep seeing what's current and pushing. So I think I would definitely say that, and we have seen that with Beyonce, you know, that she always comes with something new, and I don't even know really a lot of the latest things that she does visually and things like that, but she always reinvents, and she's always tapping into the next audience. Do you know what I mean? Like the next audience that's coming down
She's
the
not
line.
Quitting.
She's definitely
far from it
anytime soon.
So my view is that, you know, how do we then navigate toxic work environments in a realistic way? You know, absolutely, sometimes quitting is the only way when it has become so toxic and it's starting to negatively impact one's mental, physical, emotional health over a period of time. Because we all have a bad day. Nowhere is perfect. We're all going to have colleagues and situations that are challenging. But overcoming those, as we see in Beyonce's actual life, overcoming those builds our character, builds our resilience. And I do think that it helps us become more confident. Because part of what sort of shaped confidence is being able to look back and say, oh, I had this difficult situation, but I overcome it and I have learned these lessons. And that helps us to not only become resilient, but like I said, more confident. So I think quitting sometimes is the only answer. Without question, we have to leave and quit. But there are other ways that we can navigate difficult situations, and I say that part of it is first looking at ourselves. You know, is it us actually? Is it how we're viewing the situation? Is it how we're framing the situation? Is this temporary, or is it likely to be a long-term situation? What do you think, Owens? How do we navigate toxic work environments in the most realistic and best way.
And I think that is how we have to navigate it. I think you always, in any situation, have to look at where you have to have your clear boundaries. You have to have a clear sense of your own values. And I think it's when those begin to be compromised consistently, like you say, that's when you have to make a decision. When I stay and find myself in a position where I'm being devalued, and this is when she's saying they work, because again, let's go back to the lyrics. She says they work my nerves, they work my nerves. Well, I'm going to be honest, in these types of environments, your nerves will be you if you have a boss, your nerves is 90% chance your nerves are going to be worked, because you're dealing with someone that's not you, they're not in your head. And so it takes emotional intelligence, it takes self-awareness. I think you mentioned this, it takes some self-awareness, like, who am I? How can I do something to make this relationship smoother? So I think with Beyonce's lyrics, they work my nerve, they work my nerve. No, I think we need to go deeper than that. It's not just about, are they working my nerves? It's about, are they causing me to operate in a way that is against my values? Are they causing me to operate in a way that's against my ethics? And I think it has to be at that type of deeper level. And then when you see that that's happening, that's the point that you need to make decisions. But ultimately, overall, it's learning, engaging, and self-awareness. And the thing is that all this, again, I'm going back to that line, because actually I think that's the kind of line that I think is when we border on the indulgence. Like, they work my nerve, they work me 9 to 5. Well, I'm sorry, but most jobs are 9 to 5.
Beyonce's job is more than 9 to 5.
Listen, her job is 24/7.
Yes.
Really, and any entrepreneur who's working for themselves and building their own thing will tell you that job is 24/7. So we can't, say 9 to 5 and complain about that. They're working my nerves. Well, I don't think we could complain about people working our nerves, but what we can do is, like you say, grow through that. We can build our emotional intelligence, and all this talk. Sorry, this is where I was going to go with this. There's all this talk about diversity. Oh, we want diversity, but you too have to build your own sense of working in a diverse environment. So you can't expect everyone to think like you. You can't expect everyone to be like you. If you have a boss that you find troubling, what's troubling? How can I deal with someone that's like that? Because I guarantee you, if your boss is like that, you're going to have 20 other people that you're going to buck up on in your life that are like that. And you and I both know, you have one boss that's like that, you can probably think of 5 more that you've had in your career that are the same. So how do you navigate that?
I think it's I love what you just shared there. I think it's good to understand what's motivating and driving them, and to humanize them as well. It's 100%. Not easy being the boss, and sometimes we think we do a better job if we were the boss, but we may not if we were under the exact same pressures and challenges, and we may do better, absolutely. But I definitely think that digging deeper, like you said, and understanding why the situation is working your nerves.
Exactly.
It could be the company, it could be your boss, it could be you, who knows? But it's about doing that exploration.
100%.
I also think something that has come up in a number of conversations that I've had, it's choosing the right workplace in the first place, because it's unlikely that you're going to be able to change a company.
That's true.
So you need to just know what you're signing up for. I think we need to see it as similar to choosing a partner. Before we choose a partner, we understand their background, their values, who are they? We might even, we want to meet their friends, people who work with them or have known them for a long time. And I think in a similar way, we can't just job hop because we're getting promised more money. If we're only going to keep having the same issues
challenges
repeated. And I think digging deeper into, or going further and adding to your point about EQ and self-reflection, I think it's very much about thinking about what has bothered us about previous employers, I should say. What do we want and expect from the future employer? And what's most important to us? How can we, get bothered and annoyed by a work environment or a boss if we don't even know what we need, what is important to us and what we expect. And I think really before we accept a new role, getting under the bonnet of the place. And that includes, speaking to previous employees.
Go for coffees. Don't just read Glassdoor.
You gotta
go into it. You got to
go into it.
Message them. Find out why did you leave? Why did you leave?
Read their annual report. Look at their track them in the news, what has been written about them. It's always going to be hard, okay? It's always going to be difficult to know exactly what it's like to work in a place without working there yourself. But the more you can speak to people directly, the better. The more you can really find out what it's like. How can we then, in light of that, sort of manage our well-being? You know, it's actually quite a hot topic right now. People are burnt out. And not everyone necessarily wants to leave or can leave their current job. So how do people best ensure that they're taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I think, you know, you have to appreciate that, like, nobody can force you to work beyond really, well, we say they can't force you. People can cajole you, people can try to manipulate you, but I think there has to come, you know, you have to respect your own limits and boundaries more than other people's. So I think it's that fear of people. I think you have to really begin to say, no, this is what I want, and stick with that. So if you have an appointment that you attend, or you have leisure activities or things that you do, don't let work overtake that. Just don't let it. If you have to log off, then just log off.
And I think the more people do that, the more it will become a norm.
It will become normal to say, actually, no, it's 6 o'clock by, or it's 5 o'clock, I'm going. That's why I think the challenge actually is with the online way of working. So I think having a division, having a home office, or just a space, not everyone can have a home office, but just like a space where that's where you do the work, that you close the laptop and you're done. Don't, even having a separate laptop. Sometimes, your companies will give you a laptop, sometimes they won't, but just having a separation. You have to build that separation, because the reality is, if I'm an employer and if I can get more from you for less, I'm gonna get more from you for less. As if you're gonna be willing to keep giving me more, then naturally I'm gonna keep throwing more at you. So we as employees, we have to, really begin to honor our own boundaries and create that separation between life and work.
Absolutely.
I think that's
I feel like we did that during lockdown. There was a lot of that, and then we just let it fall by the wayside once that was over. And I do think there's something for negotiating and speaking up. Again, just as much as overcoming difficult situations and difficult people builds character, I think also finding a space to respectfully negotiate and speak up for yourself does the same thing.
It does.
I think that's an option that we sometimes overlook. If we need certain adjustments made, or if we feel that we need to leave at a certain time, or there's an activity we do that especially helps us, we need to do our best to speak up for that and mention that. You mentioned companies as well, and how boundaries need to be set. I think as much as we've spoken about things that individuals can do, I think there are things companies can do.
Definitely.
And when I look at the key reasons that people left during the Great Resignation, the top two were lack of pay. Actually, the top three: lack of pay, lack of opportunity for advancement, and they felt disrespected. Yeah. And I presume by the disrespect they mean unappreciated, not
undervalued.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think there's things that organisations can do to change that.
Yeah, I think so. I was reading something, on LinkedIn the other day, but it was talking about the fact that 31%, I think it said something like 31% of people have not heard thank you, I think it was, or have left companies because they felt undervalued. It was something along those lines. But even just people who haven't heard thank you in the last year, I think organisations can just thank individuals. Bundis, your team. Oh, it's a team effort. Yes, man. We know it's a team effort. We know we in a team, right? It's a team. But you can respect individuals and you can honour individuals, because yes, it's a team effort, but my individual self brought my individual contribution.
I think it's like a leadership and management issue, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
If people are feeling disrespected,
100%.
They're probably
that's a
talking
cultural,
about their leader and their manager.
and that's the thing, because they do say that people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad managers. You can have a company that's terribly corrupt, but if you have a nice manager, you'll stick around and you'll do a good job for that person. So I just think, showing a bit more, respect to individuals. Like, people are bringing their contribution. You don't know the hardships that people have to overcome, even just to get in the morning. You don't know what people are doing at home. So they're showing up. They're doing good work all the time. A thank you, a little bit of personal recognition, and some acknowledgement. Yeah. I think those things really do go a long way. They make a difference. You can't keep saying the team, because not everybody in that team is contributing equally. You and I both know. So I think there's there's nothing wrong with singling out people or just individually, just, giving thank yous. I think that would go a long way in terms of people feeling undervalued. I think also companies can, do, they like to do things. We'll have a pizza day and we'll give you ping pong in the, we'll give you snacks. It's like, no, the money that you put into the snacks and the free lunch and put it in my pocket, please. Don't give me pizza. Don't give me, just put that money in my pocket. So better raises, I think better bonuses.
The pay thing links to the lack of career opportunities and advancement, because most people want career advancement in the traditional sense, so they can get more pay.
They get more money.
But the reality of it is that most organisations are a pyramid.
Yes.
They have more people at the bottom and less people at the top. So there's only so many team leader positions going. So I think the whole structure and system needs an overhaul, and organisations need to detach hierarchy.
That's
and
a big
level
one, though. That's
from. Let me land. They need to detach hierarchy and positions from salary, and it's doable. We see a lot of organizations with either they have a flatter structure, and there's a particular organization I have in mind that everyone that enters, they pretty much get the same salary, and it's a high, very high salary. So most people will be happy for a long time. Or they, instead of rewarding people because they are leading a team of 20. Because what are we really saying then? We're saying that because you lead a team of 20, you add more value to the company, which isn't necessarily true.
And you could be leading so badly and running those people into the ground and depressing every single one.
And then it also attracts people who want to be leaders that aren't necessarily passionate about it. They just want that bigger paycheck. So you need to detach salary from hierarchy and title.
I think that's...
And like I said, either you have a flatter structure or another possibility is you pay people dependent on the skills they have and how critical those skills are to the organisation. And people, what will that engender in people? That will engender people who want to learn, who have a growth mindset, and also who want to come back and share those skills with the team. So I think attaching, if you stand back and think about it, attaching salary to how far higher up you are in the organisation isn't a beneficial approach.
No.
Because just because you have that position doesn't mean you're adding value. You could actually be ruining the organisation.
A lot of these people are ruining, because this is what happens in these organisations. And so I agree with everything you're saying, 100%. But people don't want to do that. People don't want... You will not... These big global companies that have these hierarchies, they love the hierarchy. The hierarchy preserves what they need, which is people doing, sibling rivalry at the bottom, tussling, climbing up, doing more work. It preserves it.
It's under threat, though. It's under threat because people want career advancement. It was the second biggest reason. Low pay and career advancement, I see them as very much intertwined. It was the biggest reason for people leaving their jobs in the Great Resignation. And more people are seeing themselves as job hoppers. They're not as loyal
not at all
to jobs.
And you don't have to be. You don't have to be. And I actually spoke to somebody that told me that because they'd been 20 years in the same company, they were seen as a liability and they were struggling to get work now because people saw them as institutionalized into a certain way of being.
When you've been at a company for 20 years, you can become complacent and stagnant and stop learning and stop growing because it's safe, it's easy.
Exactly.
And so absolutely it can actually negatively impact your career prospects. But I think the system needs to be changed.
I agree.
And organisations need to find a way to definitely, in the next sort of 10 years of the workplace, we're talking about protecting people's mental health, ensuring that their well-being is maintained. We're talking about rejigging the structures of the organisation so that there are multiple opportunities for increased pay and career advancement. And we're talking about, this is something we've not mentioned, and it's... We kind of did touch upon it, but creating career opportunities for people within an organisation, because we saw that, in Beyonce's song, she wants to find a new job, a new foundation. But that doesn't always mean you have to leave your organisation.
Exactly,
You can find something new in your company, and our organisations really facilitating
and
that.
Again, I don't think so, because people like the defined structures, because it means that there's only a certain number that can get to a certain point. So you incentivize people with the money, but you make them fight it out. When you make people fight it out, you get more for less, right?
It's not working now, though.
Well, it's not.
Let's say it's starting to work less.
It's working less, but I tell you what, there are the major big global organizations, I think it still works pretty well. And but the challenge is going to be that they're always going to have high attrition. They're never going to really be able to retain talent. And I suppose it's down to whether, and this is where what a lot of these organizations then double down on is PR and branding. You have to double down on the PR and branding so that you have all these smoke and mirrors that mean people still want to come in. You just won't really retain good talent all the way through the organisation. It's whether they're going to see that as a problem or not. If they're still making money, probably not.
I think that career services should be ongoing and for life. I think schools should provide better career services. It should go all the way to uni, be much more robust and stronger, looking at those elements we spoke about, like, do you enjoy it? Are you actually good at it? Will you get paid? Is there a market for it? Looking at all those factors, and then continue all the way into organisations. Just because you start in a particular role doesn't mean that it's the best fit for you in 5 years. And I think it should be the norm to find another opportunity, and an organisation should really have a career service that facilitates that, in my view.
I don't think any people should stay in positions longer than 18 months personally. I think that what these organisations could do is just rotate people. Rotate people into something new. Make sure that people have to go and pick up a new skill and, do something completely different. And I think that that's also a way that you can ensure that people are still growing, people are still advancing, and you're creating spaces for people to feel valued, and like you're also pouring into them as opposed to them just pouring into you. So, yeah.
Great discussion.
Good chat.
We covered lots of things. I feel like we could go on, to be honest.
We could.
Because we're solving all, business problems,
they should just
personal
come to
problems.
Us, basically. I think these companies need us to just consult them and tell them what to do.
Honestly. So, practically speaking, what are your key takeaways?
A key takeaway for me, if I'm going through the lyrics, Beyonce saying, I'm working 9 to 5, they work my nerve. And that, to me, I think we have to accept that that's not a reason to leave a job. All jobs, if you are doing, a professional job, you're going to be working those hours, and you will, because life is life and people are people. You're going to find people who get on your nerves. So I think one practical takeaway is when you start to find yourself in a position where you're no longer content, you feel a discontentment towards your job or your situation, start to do some self-reflection. Why am I feeling this discontentment? Are there boundaries being crossed? Am I feeling like I'm, going against my personal values? And when you find that that's the case, and once you're really sure, then start to do the work of finding places that are more aligned to your values and more aligned to the needs that you actually have. But it takes a bit of deeper work, a bit of reflection. We can't just be looking at people getting on your nerves, because that's not enough. That's not enough. We have to be responsible, and we have to do, play our parts in this as well, and do that work of development. So that's one key takeaway, practical takeaway, when we're thinking about making a transition.
Great takeaways. You've covered most of it. I would just add just the importance and the value, I think, of developing EQ when it comes to, it's very easy to say they're working my nerves and they're frustrating me, but, how much are we showing them empathy? How much are we considering what it's like to be in their position, or being aware of the factors and the pressures they might be under? And like I said, what's really motivating them? Why are they doing things the way they're doing? EQ includes sort of 4 or 5 key areas. The one is self-awareness. The second is self-regulation, motivation, empathy for others, and social skills. Of course, this is not in every situation. Sometimes genuinely this is just a toxic environment, or it's just not a good fit for us in terms of what we need and what we want and where we're headed. So I would say looking at developing that in a more deep way, in addition to what you were saying. And then the company perspective, I think we spoke about the Great Resignation, I think, with individuals, but I think companies need to have a great rethink in terms of how they're really supporting the current employee and the employee of today, but also preparing for the employee of the future, because Gen Z aren't taking this. Like,
they're not.
Gen Z are not going to just accept it like millennials have, even though we were called lazy. They're not going to accept it just as, older generations have. So I think there needs to be a great rethink. And then lastly, just remembering that, overcoming these obstacles and difficult situations at work, they build our character, they build our resilience. We need to have that self-awareness to know when it's gone too far and when actually it's no longer building us, it's tearing us down. But it can't just be at the first issue or the first hurdle. And then having people around us to help us see, actually, this job is really depleting you and it's destroying you, because we might not always be aware, but having those people around us to highlight it is very important. Interestingly, when we've summarized our key takeaways, I'm going to share one final quote from Beyonce. I've shared two. And it is, "I can never be safe. I always try and go against the grain. As soon as I accomplish one thing, I just set a higher goal. That's how I've gotten to where I am." That's Lyrically Speaking podcast, everyone. Thank you for joining another episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Lyrically Speaking podcast. We're so grateful for all of you, our listeners. We don't want this episode to be the end of us connecting, so tell us what your key takeaways were. They're probably different to ours, so we'd love to hear them. You can tweet us with your takeaways or leave them as a comment on our social media posts or our YouTube video for this episode. We are at Lyrically Speaking Podcast across all platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, except X, where you can find us as at Lyrically Pod. You can find Louise on Twitter and Instagram as at Carlo Coaching, that's Carlo with a K, and me, Omar, as at Omar.fam.